In this video, we are going to break down the differences and similarities between ramen and Saimin, Hawaii's noodle soup. We're going to talk about the history of each dish, the cultural influences, the broth, the toppings, the noodles. Let's get into it.
On our channel, we are on a journey to discover everything we can about the food and the food culture of Hawaii. Check out our videos on Kalua pig, poke, and more. This is Eat and Be Eaten Hawaii. Aloha.
Alright, so first up, let's do an intro for each dish. Ramen is, of course, a Japanese noodle soup dish. It uses Chinese-style wheat noodles that are known for their springy texture, served in a broth that is commonly flavored with soy sauce, miso. Ramen comes from a Mandarin word that means pulled noodles. Then there's Saimin, which developed during the plantation era in Hawaii from Chinese and Japanese immigrants. It uses a similar style of noodles, and the broth is a version of a dashi, which is made from dried seaweed or kelp and dried fish flakes or shrimp. Saimin also comes from a Chinese word that means thin noodles. So both Saimin and ramen have their roots in Chinese noodle dishes, and both originated and developed at about the same time, which was the early 20th century in Japan and Hawaii. Saimin started out being served from what they called Saimin wagons to plantation workers, and ramen got its start in the Yokohama Chinatown just south of Tokyo, which was the first recorded appearance of the Chinese-style noodle soup. So let's talk about the noodles first. It is the style of noodles, the springy, chewy texture that makes ramen and Saimin both such popular dishes. So what is it that creates that springy, chewy texture in this style of noodles? It's created by an ingredient known as kansui, which means alkaline salt or alkaline water, and it's an alkaline solution that adds acidity in the process of making dough. It contains 80% potassium carbonate and 20% sodium bicarbonate, which is baking soda. This ingredient also helps give the noodles their signature yellow color, in addition to making the texture more springy. In addition to noodles, the broth is the most important element of the soup that gives it its signature flavor. So let's start with ramen. There are 4 signature flavors of ramen. It's shiu, shoyu, miso, and tonkatsu. So let's go through each one quickly. Shio is the most basic. The word means salt, and it is the lightest ramen broth, usually made with chicken stock and salt. Tonkatsu is the flavor that you are smelling when you think about smelling the instant ramen flavoring packets. It's the combination of pork and ginger, simmered, boiled for many hours until it becomes rich and creamy, and the combination of pork and ginger is that signature quality that you think of when you think of ramen. Then there's shoyu, which means soy sauce, so that is flavored with soy sauce. And finally miso, flavored with miso paste, which is of course fermented soybeans. And that adds a nice warm, almost nutty, comforting quality to the soup. And then in contrast to this, and this is really the biggest difference between ramen and Saimin, a Saimin broth is a type of dashi. So dashi is a Japanese broth made from dried fish flakes and dried kombu, seaweed, kelp. In Hawaii, we use dried opai or dried shrimp rather than fish flakes, and that's what creates the base of the soup. Then we come to the meat and toppings which fill out the soup. A type of pork is popular for both Saimin and ramen. In ramen, it's called chasu, and it is a braised pork belly that has been braised in a savory sauce made with soy sauce and sugar and mirin. And that's a Japanese dish. And then in Saimin, a common type of pork is to do char siu, which is a Chinese barbecue pork dish. Char siu is usually pork butt or pork shoulder that's been roasted with 5-spice, as well as hoisin sauce and soy sauce. And the spices in 5-spice, Chinese 5-spice, is Sichuan peppercorns, star anise, cloves, cinnamon, and fennel seeds. In Hawaii, you'll also often see spam used as the protein in addition to or instead of char siu, and even sometimes pork dumplings. Sliced green onions are always included in both dishes. A slice of kamaboko fish cake, Japanese fish cake, is always included in Saimin. And of course some strips of dried nori seaweed are often included in a bowl of ramen. And that brings us to the obligatory boiled egg that you'll always find in ramen and Saimin. These are called ajitama, and they're actually marinated eggs. They're marinated in a solution of soy sauce along with mirin, sake, sugar, that classic Japanese combination. And they often boil them until they're just about medium boil. They have a little bit of texture and orangeness still in the yolk, but not necessarily runny. Whereas in Saimin, it's always just a standard hard-boiled egg, half a hard-boiled egg. And if it's not hard-boiled, it'll be scrambled and cut into strips. And the final touch for ramen and Saimin are the condiments. So like I touched on earlier with the flavors of the different ramen styles of broths, those different flavors come from what's called tare, which are the solutions of either the shoyu or the miso or whatever the flavoring ingredient will turn out to be. And these flavorings are added at the bottom of the bowl, and then the main broth base is spooned over them in making a bowl of ramen. And you'll also often see chili oil included over the top. As far as Saimin condiments go, really the only one is Chinese hot mustard. Chinese hot mustard creates, almost like a white pepper type of feeling, and it's a really nice addition to round out a bowl of Saimin as well. So there you go. Those are the differences between Saimin and ramen. Let us know in the comments if we missed anything or got anything wrong about these. What is your favorite way to put together a bowl of Saimin? And next video, we're going to do an easy homemade Saimin recipe. So that is coming up in our Saimin series here on Eat and Be Eaten Hawaii. See you guys next time. Aloha.